We're going to talk to my grandma about BDSM.
Ooh, that feels good.
Today I have a really special guest here with me to help me talk about BDSM. So BDSM stands for bondage and discipline, domination and submission, and sadism and masochism. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And luckily, I have my beautiful, amazing, sexy, smart grandmother with me. So basically, we were having dinner the other night, and she was kind of asking me questions about BDSM, and I realized that there's probably a lot of you out there who are wondering, like, what really is this? You know, how can I get into it? Some basic questions. So I decided to bring my grandma, aka someone who might not have as much experience about this, so that she can ask some questions that maybe some of you have been wondering. Grandma, I don't want to discredit any of your own experiences that you've had in this realm. So I don't know how well-versed you are.
Well-versed enough to agree to be on this show and ask more questions.
Amazing.
I have a question for you. Does bondage enhance a relationship? Because if so, I ought to think about it.
I think it really depends on the relationship and where things are at. I think sometimes people turn to bondage or other things because things in the relationship aren't working out, and so they look like externally to find things to make the relationship better. So I think in those cases, it might not help fix what's going on, but for like a healthy, positive relationship, I think it can add a lot of fun and variety and excitement to a relationship, especially after a long time when sort of vanilla sex can, I don't know, maybe get old or you want to try something new.
Well, what happens if the woman has experienced a lot of it, but she meets a dude who doesn't know? Then, I mean, where's it going to go? Because is she going to teach him, or is he going to have to learn to satisfy her?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, obviously one partner might know more than the other one, so I think you have to figure out first if your partner is interested and willing to try that kind of sex, because if they're not, you might want to figure out, is this still going to be a match for us, depending on how important BDSM or bondage or whatever it is for you. And so with that, I think if the person is open to it, there are so many ways that you can explore it. I mean, sometimes maybe that one partner who knows more might want to be the teacher, but in other cases, they might want their partner to learn from someone else. And so in that case, there's professional DOMs out there, both male and female, who can help you sort of get started and give you lessons and classes if you're interested in teaching your partner and helping them catch up to where you're at.
Well, I know every single matchmaking service, but I don't think I know any where they teach you this. So
well, you've just been looking in the wrong places.
How would I find one if I wanted to really see if I liked it and see if I wanted to try it? How do you go about finding a teacher?
I think it's a really good question, because obviously you want to find somebody who's safe and who has good rapport and a safe space. You don't just want to find like any random person on Craigslist who says they'll like teach you how to tie things up, because that doesn't sound like the most safe, comfortable environment. So specific public or private dungeons, as we would call them, that exist in lots of different cities, often have people that they've like checked out or whatever to make sure that they're safe and know what they're doing. If you live in LA, some of these places are Sanctuary LAX has some events you can go to, and some professional DOMs or submissives. There's also another place called the Dominion, where you can hire someone to give you lessons. So basically you would, if you were looking for someone specifically, you'd go into like, how are you with Google?
Oh, pretty good, and I wish I'd written down all these possible places.
I can write it down for you later.
Thank you.
So I'll include it in the info section underneath too, but if you go to Google, you would look for pro-dom or pro-sub, meaning pro-dominant or pro-submissive, and they could maybe get you started, but I'll leave some in the links below about where specifically you can find it, and I'll write it down for you.
Good. But does that mean that there's one teacher for dominant and one teacher for submissive?
There's also something called a switch, and so a switch is someone who might enjoy both roles of being a dominant or a submissive, so sometimes they'll teach either one, but I think it's important that there are people who have fun and practice BDSM, but who are not effective or knowledgeable teachers. So it's important to find somebody who is like a well-versed teacher, because there's so many safety things to go over.
Does anyone ever really get hurt because they just go too far with the partner and could hurt that person? Does that ever happen?
Well, I mean, for example, there might be someone who wants to get spanked a lot to an amount of a certain amount of pain, and their bottom might be sore for a while and they can't sit down. But that might have been what their intention was going into it. But I think what we call, it used to be called safe, sane, and consensual practice, but now it's more called risk-aware, sane, and consensual. So basically what that means is consensual, you're engaging in it, consenting to it with consenting adults, 2 or more adults. Sane, meaning that I think physically, emotionally, like your well-being is being looked after by yourself or the people you're working with. And risk-aware, meaning that you know what could happen, what the consequences are, like how you could get hurt. And so knowing the safety things of it is really important. So you don't just want to like go into it without knowing any of that stuff, because then you could really get hurt. But I think it's important to also say that BDSM isn't just about pain. There's a lot of other ways that people can play under the realm of BDSM.
Now that I'm learning all this, I want to go back to some of my old relationships with the new knowledge of the spanking routine. It sounds pretty great to me.
Well, you're in touch with some of those people. You could make it happen if you wanted.
Yeah, well, this is an exciting moment for me. I have a whole new plan for next week.
Next week? Why not start tomorrow? Well, I'm glad that I've inspired you, and hopefully I've inspired some of the rest of you to discover what this might mean for you. It's never too late to learn something new.
Am I allowed to use this on my hairdresser who does a bad job?
So I think it's important to talk about that in BDSM, even though for some there might be a sexual component, for others the BDSM part like is the sex. And so a lot of people don't even mix sex with their like BDSM or kink play.
Oh, that makes it better. I like this choice thing. It sounds a lot better.
Yeah, you definitely have a choice.
Oh, but I really want to know too, is the man always the dominant one? Because I don't think I like that too much. I think the woman should have a chance to be dominant.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, have you always wanted to be with dominant men in your life?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know. But for some people, obviously, I think there's a lot in terms of like gender roles in our society that people think men are supposed to be the dominant ones, but that's not the case in BDSM. There are lots of women who are the dominant ones and the men who are their submissives or even switches, as we were talking about earlier. So it doesn't matter based on gender, sexuality, like person preferences. Anyone could be the dominant. It just depends how they're feeling. I have noticed though, I think some people like to be dominant in all aspects of their life, but then there's some people I know who are kind of very quiet and you'd never guess, but in their like BDSM lifestyle, they're very dominant.
And I imagine it could work the other way too. A person who's so dominant in their day-to-day life would love to just relax into the idea of now they're the one that doesn't have to make the decisions or do the first moves.
Oh yeah, totally. Because if you're thinking about, and your brain is just so full of things all day, it's so nice to just be able to relax and have somebody like make decisions and take care of you.
Relax and have someone just beat you. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
Nothing I want more.
So if you're looking for that, we're taking applications.
If at first whatever you learn seems to work, in another month when you're still into it, does it have to progress for you to still feel satisfied?
You mean become like more intense
Yes.
or crazier?
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the person. I mean, you'd have to ask each person individually, but I know for some people, they have like one fantasy or one fetish that they like to do over and over. And then for some people who are maybe more like adrenaline junkies or whatever you would want to call it, want to find something else that feels riskier or more exciting. And I think, I don't know, that kind of relates to like the porn people watch sometimes, that like if you start watching, I don't know, the like crazier, more outlandish porn, like are you going to be more easily shocked or not? But I think it just depends on the person.
Well, I was wondering, what about in gay sex? Is there any difference in the S&M type because you don't have as much of the total feminine there? Even it might have a different flavor to it doing.
Well, I can't speak for everybody, and as a person who's not queer, I think it really depends. But yeah, I don't think there has to be any difference. I think each of us as people have some feminine energy and some masculine energy, and that can come out in any different way. And so if you have 2 gay men or 2 gay women or whatever, there could still be one person who's more dominant, one person who's more submissive or feminine, as you might call it. And I don't think gender or orientation or whatever matters. It's just what you're interested in and what you want to do, and finding someone who wants to do something that works with that.
I'm assuming that if you're conducting the same kind of rituals in your household, that you need some equipment. Is that true?
Oh yeah, I think BDSM can definitely get pricey, but it doesn't necessarily have to. A lot of people call Home Depot Dom Depot because you can find amazing things there for cheaper, whether it's chains or cable ties or tape or things like that. So you don't have to get the like amazing leather harness or the really expensive ropes or whatever. I think it's just important to know the safety issues with those things that maybe aren't sold specifically for that. But there's ways to do it like on the cheap, but definitely equipment is important in terms of safety, and yeah, it's just fun.
Well, when I'm getting this great idea for people my age, how do they hide the equipment from their grandchildren that visit?
You don't have to hide your equipment from me.
Oh, okay.
I'll help you buy the equipment.
Even better.
When are we going? I know lots of people who have, my old supervisor used to call it multiple personality order. And I think some people consider like having different personalities or different parts of yourself to be a bad thing. But I don't really see it as being a bad thing to sort of compartmentalize your life. So why can't you be a school teacher or whatever during the day and like a dominatrix at night, and separating those two things? Obviously, you're not going to be teaching your like 2nd graders how to whip people, but at night you can do that in the other part of your life. So, I mean, you could lock it in a box, you could have a separate room just for that that's like soundproofed or whatever, depending on what you can afford. If it's like general household items you're using from Dom Depot, people might not even know what it's for. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there who you would never guess are into certain things because they hide it. Or I knew an airline pilot once who really liked to wear women's underwear and women's tights, and he would wear that underneath his airline pilot outfit. And so now when I go to the airport, I'm always thinking like, who's wearing the panties? But you know, you can do both of those things.
I got stymied.
You were thinking about the pilot and the panties?
I have to ask you, as a sex therapist.
No, you know, I don't think I feel comfortable answering. I'm just kidding. I'm sitting on a couch talking to my grandma about BDSM. You can ask me whatever you want.
Well, thank you for giving me such an education. It's really just an amazing bit of knowledge I didn't have before. So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and talking with me about this and for being so open. Now you can probably guess why I'm in the field I'm in, because I have such an amazing open family, and not everyone is that lucky. So if you come from a family that isn't that open, find a way to meet people who are interested to talk about what you're interested in, and hopefully this was helpful for you.
So then after all this excitement and wonder, how do you go back to just plain fucking?